Hey everyone, it's Baby Notification again, and the previous video was for Fire Mage, and today we are actually going to work on the Arcane Mage and just show you guys what you have to do. Now this is going to be a little meh. I'm sure a lot of people will be commenting saying, "Oh, that's not how you do it. You're supposed to do it this way and that way, etc., etc." Because I haven't played Arcane since 4.1 when I actually decided to go Fire once they actually buffed it in 4.2. So I'm just going to show you guys a couple quick things about it. First off, we'll go with the stats like we did last time. Intellect, always, for all specs, always go intellect. Then after that, haste and mastery will be your best one. Now see, since I have really good gear, I really don't need to worry about the haste, the soft haste capped, especially with my, since I have the 4-piece bonus, so I don't even really have to worry about stacking haste, like at all. I don't have to reforge stuff in haste, I don't have to do anything like that, because once I get up to 4 stacks and I have the little buff going for me from like this thing right here, the stolen time, I will have absolutely no need for haste because I'll pretty much, and especially because basically what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get it to the point of where at 4 stacks of arcane blast with your haste and all that from stolen time, and then with time warp on, you should be at around 1 second cast time, so you get maximized potential or whatever for your arcane blast. Because with this spec, instead of you focusing more on like keeping dots up, looking out for specific procs, etc., etc., you're more focusing on this bar right here. Because of our mastery, it allows us to do more damage for the amount of mana we don't have spent. So pretty much instead of with fire where you can just nuke away all you want and then get your mana back with evocation whenever you damn well please, with this you pretty much have to look at it more and sort of keep it around a certain point, which is why we have 2 phases. We have first phase, which is burst phase. That is normally at the beginning of a fight or during the time for a boss whenever they have some form of increased damage. Like Lord Zanaz has one whenever the little purple ball hits him and he goes berserking and all that, he takes more damage. Great time to use all your cooldowns, etc., etc. It's the best time for a burst phase. After that, it's the preservation phase, where basically you are just maintaining your mana at a certain point, so you're putting out a constant level of DPS. Because the lower your mana goes, less damage you do, which is why mastery is important. So, what you're going to do is you're pretty much just going to be spamming 2 abilities. Pretty much just one ability, and then using a second ability, Arcane Missiles, whenever it procs during your preservation phase. So, what has been very helpful for me ever since I started playing Arcane long time ago, even back in, well, not a long time ago, but back in Wrath, which is not really that long ago, but still a decent time away, I pretty much macroed all my cooldowns and trinkets into one ability here. I just call it haste because it speeds up my casting and all that, and just does a bunch of other cool stuff. And it'll pretty much, like, you pretty much want to macro it to a couple of your abilities. So for example, here you have my little macro here, and I always like the I assume that's Lava Lash with the tooltip for that. But I have it set up where it's just like slash cast arcane power, mirror image, berserking. And since I have a major glyph in arcane power, there is no global cooldown for mirror image. So that means that just increases how quickly that will come out, and I can DPS a lot quicker. So after arcane power, mirror image, and berserking come up, I'm ready to go ahead and start my burst phase. Also, you can also put cast and then whatever the name of your trinket is. So if this was a castable trinket right here, like they increase my mastery or something, you can put that there as well, and I'll proc that as well. Also, with this, is I need to find the damn button for it to create these. I need to create some Conjure Managem, that's it. Conjuring right now. And so now you have enough of those. Because see, the cool thing about the Managem is that not only does it restore your mana and technically increase your damage because you have more mana, but also it increases your spell power by 2% of your maximum mana for 15 seconds. So since my maximum mana is 120,000, it's going to increase it by, what would that be, like 6,000? Some odd, something around that point. I really don't care. But this is pretty much the tree that you're looking at here. I'm just going to pause there for 1 second if you want to pause the video and sort of copy that, do whatever you need to do. There's a couple different things that you could do with this. I mean, you could put different points in different things, but this is a pretty good spec all around for pretty much almost all raid situations. First off, you have Nether Wind Presence, which is pretty much something you're going to be using in every single one of your specs, just because it does increase your spell haste by 3%, which is actually a good bit. Concentration, talked about that in the fire video. Torment the Weak. Now you would think that with arcane damage spells, like doing 6% more damage to snare targets, you would think, okay, well that wouldn't work on a boss because bosses can't be slowed. Well, Torment the Weak actually, like, if you put slow on a target, which is this ability right here, which slows down their cast speed, its movement speed, etc., etc., it's a slow effect, you will still get the damage buff from that because the ability is still there. Otherwise, it would make that talent completely pointless. So that's actually a very important talent to use. You would think that's just for PvP, but it really works out for raids and all that as well. Pretty much everything else here is fairly self-explanatory. Increases the missiles you fire, which means more damage, how fast they fire. Presence of Mind is a very interesting ability that I actually don't use that often. I should use it, but the reason why I don't is because of the fact that I only really ever use it during my burst phase. But I can't use it during my burst phase because if I have this active, I can't use that. Same with that. I can't use that, etc., etc. But it always is good to spec into that because you get two amazing talents to go with that. That, which increases the cooldown of all your cool things like this and that, which are very important, which I will get to when I actually do the rotation. Then you have Arcane Tactics, which is a great raid buff for just damage overall. Now, hunters can bring their own in, but mages, by default, if you're arcane, you get that. Arcane Potency, good stuff. It's also great because that's the one good thing about Presence of Mind, is that as soon as you use that, that'll proc. And you'll get 2 stacks of that. And Nether Vortex, once again, not a bad spell, which is why you would want to spec into slow in the first place, is because basically whenever you cast Arcane Blast, it'll cast slow on the target automatically. So you'll automatically start doing that 6% damage. You don't actually have to cast slow and then start casting Arcane Blast and then refreshing slow. I mean, it's a nice little addition they made. Focus Magic is something that you would want to use a good bit on another class that'll crit a lot. It's also very helpful if you throw it on healer, especially a disc healer. Disc healers will love you to death if you put that on them, just because of the fact that most of their healing abilities and like their mastery and all that requires crits. So that's always a wonderful thing to put on Disc Priest. If there is no Disc Priest, put it on like a... You can put it on a Warlock. If they put that a Warlock, like if you put that for the Warlock, then that'd be pretty good. What other classes really proc crit a lot? I don't know. I mean, if you see a Fire Mage, definitely give Focus Magic to them because they will definitely make good use of that. Improved Mana Gem, which I talked about, and then Arcane Power, which increases the damage you deal by a good bit, but it also increases the cost of your attacks by 10%, which is why it's useful to only use that during your burst phase rather than your maintain phase, because it'll make it harder to maintain your abilities. But we will end up using it during our maintain phase, just because of the fact that we do get a reduced cooldown because we have the 4-piece set. One of the great things about the 4-piece set from... What is it? The Firelands tier set, which is not there actually. Hold on, just one second. I'll get to it once I figure it out. Here we go. Mage, and here we go. Okay, so you can, I don't know if you can see the grayed out text there, but basically, in addition, Arcane Power decreases the cost of your damaging spells by 10% instead of increasing their cost, which is amazing for both burst and preservation phase. If I could have the 4-piece bonus from this and for my Time Lord thing, I would be the happiest camper. I would be so happy about that. But sadly, that's not the case. But that is that was my favorite 4-piece set. Even though I never actually ended up getting the 4-piece set, I would have loved to have had that. Anyway, so now that we've talked forever about that, we are going to just quickly talk about some more of the abilities. You also want to cast Flame Orb whenever it's off cooldown, unless you're in your burst phase. If you're in your burst phase, just completely forget about Flame Orb. There'll be a slight DPS loss because there's that 1 second when you won't be casting Arcane Blast. I mean, you could cast it beforehand. I would recommend using it during your preservation phase because it has a chance to proc Arcane Missiles, like for every hit. So if you need to gain mana back quickly, Flame Orb is a good way to use it. You would think, okay, well, how's that going to help? Well, whenever Arcane Missiles procs, it costs no mana to cast it. So you can just always use that. And then Arcane Barrage, you can use some, especially if you're on the move and you already have 4 stacks on something. It's great. For AoE, basically all you'll do is you'll keep up 4 stacks of the Arcane Blast debuff, which I will get to in a minute. Actually, I'll show you that right now. So each time you cast Arcane Blast, you get this debuff. It increases the damage of Arcane Blast and Arcane Explosion by a certain percent each time. But it also increases it decreases its cast time as well, which is a pretty nice thing about it. But it also does increase the mana cost of Arcane Blast. Because as you can tell here, with no stacks, it's only 871. And after the first one, 2177, still not bad. I got a clear casting, so whatever with that. 4,790, and then it caps out at 6,000, which will drain your mana pretty quickly if you just constantly spam that. But the more mana you have, the better. Other than that, which is the reason why you use Arcane Missiles and Arcane Barrage during your preservation phase, because you want to dissipate those stacks, and these are the 2 abilities, that will dissipate that little thing, and then you can start again, etc., etc. So we're gonna begin the burst phase here in just a second, and what we'll do is as soon as we start, go ahead and proc that, and then start casting. Actually, what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably end up casting 3 or 4 of these and then doing that, because then that'll increase my damage overall. Then use Mana Gem. Good times had by all, right? Right, good. So we're going to begin this. We're going to go ahead and start casting Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, Arcane Blast, proc that, and off we go into Burst City. So as you can see, we're just bursting along. Got some nice little damage going here. Now at 35%, 30, 35, a little debate on that, you would want to stop just spamming Arcane Blast. Because see, I'm already at 40k DPS. Okay, so see, now I've hit the point where I want to evocate. So then you evocate, get all that mana back, and so begins the preservation phase. Basically what you want to do is you want to keep your mana up between 100 and 80%. So if you just cast 3 Arcane Blasts and an Arcane Missiles, then maybe Arcane Missiles again, etc., etc., you'll do great. I don't even have Mage Armor on, so I'm dumb. That's the first problem right there, is I didn't even have Mage Armor on, so I actually lost a good bit of DPS on that just because of the fact that I wasn't gaining really any mana. But now I am, and so we're just maintaining this, and now we went down from 40k to 23k. Now you notice that this thing is slowly starting to come off cooldown, a lot quicker than it would on fire. But the one problem with that is that what is it? Yeah, it's still going to take a little bit for it to get down to where we want it to be. Because once it gets down to about 30 seconds or so, that's when you want to go ahead and start bursting again. And bursting is always good. So since we have that intellect bonus right there from Power Torrent, we're just going to spray a little bit there. And just sort of maintain the DPS. Doing good, doing good. Okay, we got about 40 seconds left, so in about 10 seconds, we're going to go ahead and go back into a miniature version of the burst phase. A miniature version of it. And so now we can just start casting Arcane Blast willy-nilly. Now currently that second trinket I have is actually not going to do a lot of favors for me, just because it's mostly, like, I really would love to have that mastery, but it only works to have a dot on it, and it's not worth actually putting a dot on the target to get that. It really isn't. So there we go. And then we'll just do that, and boom, evocation. So now we got that evocation going again. And then, damn it. And that's one thing I hate about doing the thing on the dummy, is that after the whole entire cast time, I think it's like 5 seconds, you end up losing your, you end up leaving combat, which is what I hate about showing you guys this through there. But that's pretty much what you pretty much do in your arcane spec. And then you just pretty much rinse and repeat. So then all these should be off cooldown by the time this is ready to go again. So what you'll do is then you'll do Like you'll wait until that's pretty much full. Like you'll wait until that's full, and then you go ahead and pop these, and then once you get down to, actually once this gets to about maybe 20-25 seconds, I mean you're gonna have to vary that depending on what your gear is, how much mana you have, and how long you can pretty much start casting stuff. But once that gets to about 20 or 30 seconds, go ahead and start proc that stuff again, and you can go ahead and spam Arcane Blast down to 30%, and then hopefully your evocation will be up. Just don't go below 30%. If you need to, just cast Arcane Missiles until evocation is ready, and then bring it up. Bring your mana back up to full. Remember to use your mana gems whenever it's off cooldown, especially during your burst phase, because that will give you a nice spell power bonus. Make sure you have focus magic on a target. See, there's no other people around here DPSing stuff as well. If there were, then I would have put it on them, and you could have gotten a feel for that, because not only does it increase their crit chance by 3%, but whenever they crit, your crit chance goes up by 3% for 10 seconds. And that's a great thing about it. And if you have it on, like on a fire mage, they're pretty much always critting, which means that you're always going to be having that 3% crit, which is actually pretty good, because crit's good for any class, but for Arcane, it is the thing that you want to always reforge out of to into other things like hit cap, which is 17%, haste, and mastery. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this nice little presentation here of the Arcane Mage, which I have not played in forever, so if I sucked at it, I'm sorry. But here are pretty much the glyphs you want to get. I mean, these are all pretty much self-explanatory. Now, if you feel like you like to use Arcane Barrage more than you do Arcane Missiles, spec an Arcane, like put the glyph of Arcane Barrage in place of Arcane Missiles, because this just increases the crit chance by 5%. I personally like Arcane Missiles more because of such a high haste rating that I have. So, but Arcane Barrage would still work out great. Mage Armor is not necessarily a must, but it is really good. Like, if you like to use Arcane Barrage and Arcane Missiles and you have no problem maintaining your mana whatsoever, go ahead and just replace Mage Armor with Arcane Barrage. You'll still be fine. But I just like this one because it regenerates, how much now? It regenerates 4% of my maximum mana every 5 seconds, which is great. And also it reduces, another good thing about Arcane is the when using Mage Armor, reduces harmful effects against you by 35%, which is great against like Lords and Oz. Whenever you have that little magical debuff where you take damage, and then if they dispel it, you get bounced back. This will decrease the time of that. So if a healer can't seem to heal you in time, or they can't seem to heal you up to the point of where you need to be, like if you have Mage Armor up, you can just go ahead and cast like Mana Shield or something like that to absorb the damage, and then it won't last as long, and maybe you can survive. Maybe not. I don't know. Arcane Power is one that you would definitely want to have as your major glyph, but Invisibility and Evocation are still fan-freaking-tastic. You could always put a Blink in place of the Invisibility one. I just like that one because of the fact that it's nice to be able to just go invisible and get a nice little speed boost whenever I need to move around a lot. And in a lot of fights you have to move around quite a bit. Like Deathwing, for example. I mean, when you have to hop from platform to platform, it's a good ability to have. Anyway, next time we will actually go into Frost, and that will be the final spec. And hopefully, if you guys enjoyed this enough, I will go ahead and do it for one of my other characters as well. I'm still trying to decide which one I would want to do, but I'm thinking I might do my rogue, and showing you guys combat, assassination, and subtlety. And also at some point I'll probably end up showing you guys some PvP stuff for Frost as well, because Frost currently, as of patch 4.3 in Cataclysm, on the date of March 15th, 2012, it is severely OP. It's a broken class. I mean, we just destroy everything. I mean, we may not have the best survivability, but against melee, there's like pretty much nothing else that can beat us. Like against pretty much all melee classes, if you know how to play a Frost Mage, you are almost always going to be on the top of the boards. Always. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful day, because now it is daytime, not nighttime, and see y'all around.